Beth Novak, people are excited about you. Hey, Dee Berlin, awesome. I'm going to do the whole talk like this because that's how I can talk to you. They haven't given us a thing, so I mean, ordinarily, this is what tumbling actually is all about. This is the reason I'm excited to be here. The point is, right, that we connect with each other. That's, to me, the reason the web is cool, not just so we can all get carpal tunnel. So good morning. I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm Heather Gold, and you are Wayne Phillips and Julie Staffen and Dave Cirilli and some other people here at Web 2.0 in New York. I'm excited to be here. I want to talk to you about tumbling, which is an old Yiddish word. Any other Jews in the house? This is New York. I do not believe you're all honorary Jews. It's okay to come out. It's much edgier to be Jewish than gay now if you're out about it. So it's an old Yiddish word that means literally noisemaker. It's somebody who was hired to come to a wedding or a party and make sure everyone had a good time. Make sure you were both entertaining but involving everybody. And this is a real change from the one-to-many mode. That let's see, this is new to me. Slides. Does this work? Look at that. Exciting. Okay. So on the left, my left. It's working for me, it's working for you. Is like Scott Birkin was saying yesterday, thousands and thousands of years of one-to-many talk. Television is just great. It's me, listen to me, it's all about me. I have authority, I got a podium, I'm your boss, I'm wearing a tie. I tried, it's old school. And that's why the notion of authority is changing as well, because when you're trying to give usually a traditional speech or run a web business or try to scale something, it's tougher to do it entirely in this one-to-many way. And that's why I think we're at a pretty exciting time and something that's changed for performers, which is to try to shift from one-to-many, from presentation to this kind of more circular thing, that other image I've got, which is really conversation. And the role of a tumbler is a little bit different than a pure traditional performer. In traditional stand-up, and part of the reason I kind of stumbled into this is I started performing. I've been working on the web since very early days, long page loads in between pages and early times at Apple on webcasting. And I started performing with Geek Pals, and of course inspired by web entrepreneurs. I wanted to change everything, right? I wanted to take everything I didn't like and make it different. And one day I was doing a show at South by Southwest, where I've been doing shows since it pretty much started, and I was setting up a joke. I would bring all these people together, other great people like Justin Hall who do pieces, and I asked everybody, who's got repetitive stress injuries? Which is a typical form for stand-up. You ask the room a question, right? Often a thing you know the answer to already. And somebody yelled out, we can't raise our hands. And I was like, that is awesome. And then I thought, only because I'd spent a couple of years in Silicon Valley, the obvious next thought, what if I didn't write all the jokes? This is a long time in web years. This is way back in the 90s. And so I started experimenting with how could I make this more like a listserv. That was the model I had then in my head, or object-oriented software. I thought that was kind of cool. How do you set things up so that people are involved? Isn't it more fun that the whole thing is funny, and that my job would be to make sure the whole thing was funny and everyone was part of it, as opposed to I'll just sit back and be completely passive, which is more of a television model. Now, this meant I got to work on changing things I didn't like about stand-up, and that a lot of people I knew don't like about stand-up. The clubs have their own issues, right? I mean, everyone doesn't want to be heckled, and everyone doesn't want to be, reamed by the comic. Those two things go together. And in traditional, one-to-many as well as narrative, conflict's been a generator of a lot of energy. And when you're trying to scale conversation that I've been able to do the last 10 years since this aha listserv moment, I've learned a lot of things about how you make that happen, but the most critical thing is that you care to do that is your goal. Because if your goal is just to have the most energy at the moment, it is possible to go to more of kind of an addiction style model, which stand-up totally is. Ask a lot of stand-ups, it's just like bigger laugh, next please, let this be funnier. The goal is not just for me to get that, but for us to get that together and to have as many people involved as possible, which also involves like reading the room, something you have to practice when you're on stage a lot. I wish I had more time so I could talk to you guys about this. Hey, Andrew Cohen, what up? Where are you? I'm over here. All right. So we've learned to communicate this way, which is a great thing. And the Twitter stream, this kind of way of communicating, is only making tumbling more important. So one of the things tumbling makes possible, Twitter, look, I'm already mixing them together. Twitter lets you see lots of different worlds and points of view all at the same time. I don't know how many of you intentionally choose a stream or subscribe to flows that are really different in your life, but it's quite common. Is this working? Is this thing on? To try to have difference. And this is a key thing. So this is an image from Heather Gold's talk show that I do live sometimes at conferences, soon to be online streaming. Now, one of the key things that I did on a talk show based on tumbling that was different, and this principle I think works in scaling lots of things, is not to make sure it's built on conflict, okay? Because you can do that and you'll get a certain amount of energy, but it will dissipate really fast. It won't build over time the way we've seen Flickr, dig other kinds of worlds where there's a sense of community. Twitter kind of grow over time, where the reason hashtagging, like Bertone talked about yesterday, and retweeting, all those things work well is because they're helping you cross over, making connections between worlds, like Dana Boyd was hoping that we do. Tumblers really do that. It's an important skill set, I believe, not just for comedy and performance, but I think it's a dynamic from performance so we can learn to work in lots of other areas. In fact, I'm going to be doing a show on Twit with Kevin Marks, will be up here later, and Deb Schultz, all about tumbling for business. I think it's something CEOs need to know how to do. People you already know are doing this. There's somebody in your organization that makes the place work, somebody who keeps the conversation going. There's some website you love, and they kind of keep the fire burning. That's a human skill. The machines can help scale that, but it's a human skill to notice who's involved, who's not, how do I keep them here, how do I make them energized. So some of the mechanics of how you do that, I'm going to give you a couple of quick clues in the time I have remaining. 3 people, multiple points of entry. That's why I've got at least 3 people in front of the room. I know they're all white and of a certain age, but in other ways they are different in this particular show. This is a great photo, by the way, of Heather Champ, who I want to thank, from Flickr, of Betsy Salkin, Derek Pwazik, and Michelle T. Now, the focus, this show is themed intimacy. You want to reframe your conversation, whatever conversation you're having, so that the goal is something semi-universal enough to hold both the central question, like you saw in the circle, as well as difference, as many different points of view as there can be. You kind of can't lose. You want as much difference as possible. Difference is good, not just because it's touchy-feely and you want to make a Benetton ad, but because creatively, contrast is how people get interested and excited. We've just used conflict for a long time to pay attention to contrast. I think our generation and younger is so narratively saturated and savvy that we're going to new and new lengths to create contrast. But if you design for it, if you want to tumble for it, and know that your job is going to be to keep everyone together and go to the person, and so that when you're doing what is now called community managing, instead of babysitting people, instead of trying to be, you try to go first. Okay, that's another thing that works kind of mechanically and making conversation really work. You don't just stand back like a neutral facilitator. You put yourself out there. Here's something about who I am. Here's what I think. But you don't make it only be about that. You do that in order to make it easier and safer for other people to show up and to have something to react to. And then you handle it if they don't agree with you. That's really key. You need the difference to keep the thing growing, because there's no way you're going to manage everybody being the same. It just takes too long. It's not something anyone wants to manage. And actually, the jokes, everyone being funny, often comes out of that difference. That's a lot of times what I'm setting up. So here I was emphasizing, we're talking about intimacy. Betsy is an advocate for, children's sexual rights and all kinds of other issues. She said, she's a comedian. She said, my position is I'm here to represent the anti-position. As a joke. And Derek was talking about tech communities and creating intimacy online. And Michelle was talking about it as an ex-sex worker. Yes, this is what people talk about, Web 2.0. But that was just to set the tone. We had entrepreneurs in the room. I had grandmothers in the room. I had drag queens in the room. It was an incredibly diverse room. And no matter how much everyone maybe on their face looks the same, everyone's different. And drawing those things out and letting people know that those are welcome are going to be part of what draws people in. I'm going to put a document up the next day up at mpresenting.com that'll have more notes and more kind of little things you can do to help make the conversation work. If you're interested in learning how to help run a room and not just present in a speechy way, I'm starting to do workshops in that too. And you guys can ask me any questions you like, and I'm happy to talk to anyone else. I'm really excited because I think tumbling is part of how we're going to meet that middle place between one-to-many, old-school mainstream media system and the chaos of user-generated content. It's how we're going to get quality and inclusion for everybody together. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.